In today's Coffeemaker Showdown, we're looking at two SCAA Certified, that's the Specialty Coffee Association of America, home coffee makers. And this is the KitchenAid Pour Over, the latest to join the list of SCAA Certified coffee makers. And this is the Brazen Plus, which is what I've been using for about a year now. Major differences between them, well, this is glass carafe, and it has a heating plate at the bottom to keep the coffee hot after it's been brewed, or I should say warm. And then we have a thermal carafe for the Brazen Plus. Unlike the Bonavita BB1900, or I should say the 1800 had the option to choose between a thermal carafe and a glass carafe. These are set in stone. There's only a glass carafe option for the KitchenAid, and there's only a thermal carafe option for the Brazen. Most coffee experts will tell you to not use a heating plate, or to not keep your coffee on a heating plate really for more than a few minutes. And KitchenAid actually says this themselves. They say you want to drink the coffee pretty much as soon as it's been brewed. But there are people who are accustomed to having a heating plate. So for those people, in a way, the KitchenAid is a good option because it's the only SCAA certified coffee maker that offers the heating plate option. Most people will tell you, however, to use a thermal carafe, particularly a preheated thermal carafe. It will keep your coffee hot for several hours and it won't negatively impact the taste. So let's just break down the differences in size here, and I'll give you a side profile of both of them. Brazen Plus is pretty much a consistent size in terms of depth and width. So in terms of height, 15 inches for the KitchenAid versus about 15 inches for the Brazen Plus. So same height, depth, about 10 inches for the KitchenAid, and then about 8 for the Brazen Plus. And then let's look at width here, 9, and this is about 7. So the Brazen Plus is a little bit smaller, but they're both much larger than the Bonavita BB1900. So if you're looking for an SCAA certified coffee maker that doesn't take up a lot of space, you probably wouldn't be looking between these two. But for some people, that's not a very important detail. Another major difference. So the KitchenAid uses a conical filter basket, and in turn conical filters. Brazen Plus, its brew basket comes out there. It uses a flat filter basket and flat filters. It also comes with this permanent filter that you have the option of using. You could use paper filters though too, which is what I'm going to be doing today in the showdown when we compare the taste of the two coffee makers. So there's actually a good amount of debate about whether conical or flat base is the way to go for a filter basket, and I'm actually uncertain myself. It seems that most are shifting towards the flat model, and that's because it arguably calls for a more even extraction, so the water's making contact evenly and not being funneled down through the middle of the filter and thus over extracting the coffee, bringing out more of the bitter elements. So that's the argument for flat versus conical. Today we'll get a good idea for what is the better way, and it won't be entirely conclusive because there's a lot of variables at play here, but at least we'll hopefully know which one makes better coffee under as many of the same parameters as possible. So they're both programmable. You could set a clock and have it brew at a certain time of day. The KitchenAid Pour Over, I've noticed it forces you to set a time every time you plug in the coffee maker, which is a little bit annoying. The Brazen Plus, it won't force you to set a time, but it will just default to 12 o'clock when you plug it in. So if you unplug these coffee makers, they're not going to memorize the time. However, the Brazen Plus will remember what you programmed your auto start for. And one of the big selling points for the Brazen Plus is that you could use a manual method by removing the filter basket and placing it directly under the shower head. So can you do that with the KitchenAid Pour Over? Well, you could, but there's one problem, and it's the heating plate. So if you think that it's okay to put your ceramic cup or whatever cup you use on top of a heating plate, then by all means go for it. KitchenAid doesn't really recommend this though. They actually don't say anything about it in their manual. So while it's something you can do, I would probably just do this on the Brazen Plus. Okay, let's take a look at the water reservoirs. This is for the KitchenAid. It is a plastic water reservoir. The water comes in through this small opening, and this fixture closes over it, just like that. This is the Brazen Plus's reservoir. It's all stainless steel, and there's water level indicators on the inside that I don't really use. I don't find them too helpful. There's just a 6 cup and an 8 cup, so I like to measure out my water ahead of time. There's a little filter there too. This is the water level indicator for the KitchenAid, and it's pretty difficult to see where the water is, but when I pour in the water, you might notice the fill line that it reaches, and maybe you won't. It's not that easy to see, as I already mentioned, so it looks like it's just past the 2 here. Okay, let's talk about how to use this and programmability, etc., etc. So when you plug in the KitchenAid, you'll be forced to set the clock right away. We have 4 buttons here at the top: the brew button, we have a menu button, we have a plus and a minus, and just a set button. So it's pretty intuitive, no more or less intuitive than the Brazen Plus. You have to set the clock right off the bat, and to start a brew cycle, you just press brew. You can also change the number of cups quickly and easily by just hitting plus and minus. So this is one of the big selling points for the KitchenAid, in my opinion, and that is that you can pour as much water as you want into the reservoir. So say you had 8 cups worth of water in the reservoir and only want to make 4 cups, you could select that, and that's the amount of water that it would dispense. All the other SCAA certified coffee makers at the time of this showdown, they just release all of the water that you add. So there's no way to select your cup size. You can also choose between dark and light roast, or sorry, dark and medium roast. So medium roast will use hotter temperatures that they don't specify in the instructions. Dark roast will use a slightly cooler temperature. So that's the temperature adjustment setting. And then they have a clean setting where it will just cycle through all of the water. So pretty simple. From menu, you can also set your timer. So let's say we wanted to make it 8 a.m. We just hit set, and then it will beep when it's set. So the timer will start at 8 a.m. So let's see what happens when we unplug it. Let's see if it remembers that time well. So it looks like the KitchenAid has a little bit of memory. I don't know how long it will remember it for, but you do have to reset the time, I know, if it's unplugged for an extended period, which I'm not sure of. Okay, so the Brazen Plus is a little bit more complicated, but that's because it has a little bit more in terms of features. So when you cycle through modes, you can set your auto start time, just like the KitchenAid. And then you can also adjust your pre-soak or pre-infusion or your bloom, whatever you want to call it, up to 4 minutes, I believe, and as low as 15 seconds. The KitchenAid Pour Over does have a pre-infusion, but it's pretty much set at, I think, somewhere between 30 seconds and a minute. You can also adjust the temperature, I think as low as 190 and as high as 210. So it's not just a matter of dark roast versus medium roast or two temperatures, it's multiple temperatures. And then you can set your clock, and you can also calibrate for your altitude. All right, taking a look at the shower head for the KitchenAid Pour Over, you can see we have 7 holes, so 7 places where the water will be dispensed from. Here's the Brazen Plus in comparison, whole lot more holes. So this is all about saturating the coffee evenly, which is a big part of the SCAA certification. So the Brazen Plus has the most holes of any of the brewers, and that could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing. I've heard of certain units not dispersing water evenly, but this is actually an issue for all of the brewers that I've tested. So Bonavita BB 1800, the 1900, KitchenAid, and the Brazen Plus. Whether it's intentional or not is really unknown. Okay, so it's the moment we've been waiting for, the blind taste test. I've ground out 30 grams of coffee for each coffee maker. I'm using Melita filters, white conical for the KitchenAid, and then natural brown flat cupcake style for the Brazen Plus. I clocked in 197 degrees Fahrenheit for the KitchenAid, so that's what I'm going to set the Brazen for. And it's going to be an 18-to-1 ratio, so about 540 grams of water in each of these coffee makers. Okay, so let me just summarize the results real quick. The Brazen Plus took significantly longer to brew the first time around, and it could have been because it wasn't heated up ahead of time. Sometimes it takes a few cycles for these things to get going. The second time around, it brewed almost as quickly as the KitchenAid, so that was for 4 cups of coffee. Other things to note, so with the dark roast, the results were split. We didn't like either of the cups very much and found them both to be overly bitter. I chose the Brazen and my girlfriend chose the KitchenAid, so pretty inconclusive there. So I decided to use some coffee from Angel's Cup, and it was much better, and the results were pretty conclusive. Although both cups of coffee were really good, the KitchenAid, my girlfriend and I agreed, we agreed that that was the better one. So that doesn't necessarily mean that the KitchenAid is always going to brew a better cup of coffee, but under these parameters, 4 cups, an 18-to-1 ratio, 197 degrees Fahrenheit, and also a final brew temperature that was virtually the same versus a 10-degree difference the first time around with the dark roast. I mean, I think it was pretty even, same grind for both, and the KitchenAid was a little bit better in terms of flavor, although I think the Brazen Plus had a little bit more aroma. So let's just talk about who each of these is for, if at all. So really, the thing that I like most about the KitchenAid is that you can choose your cup size. You don't necessarily have to weigh out your water. If you know how much water corresponds with the amount of coffee you use, you can just weigh out the amount of coffee. So I use 30 grams, and I know that the water, if I select 4 cups, it comes out fine. So you can more easily eyeball with the KitchenAid, even though the fill line indicator is really difficult to see. Downside of the KitchenAid, in my opinion, is that it's not as versatile. You can't adjust your temperature as much. It has that hot plate, which I think is just a nuisance, and it can't be turned off. But if you remove your pot from it right away, then I think you're going to get really great tasting coffee. So it's really comparable. This is less of a fuss, the KitchenAid, but this is more for somebody who is a bit more of an enthusiast and wants to experiment more. Either way though, I think you're going to get a great cup of coffee so long as you use the right kind of coffee. Freshly ground coffee will get you great results. They're both programmable, they're both BPA free, and really you can go either way with them. But at least in this showdown, in my opinion, for taste, KitchenAid is the winner. Overall best buy, I would say, is the Brazen Plus, because you just get more features for a very similar price tag. I believe the KitchenAid's at $170 and the Brazen Plus is at $200. So for just $30 more, you're getting extra features. So thanks for watching, and feel free to comment, subscribe, share, and of course like the video if you liked it. Thank you.